Then the whistle blew and the teams went to break. The two players in blue were very indignant towards the rest of their players. "We are two professionals. How can we manage these three amateurs?" One player said. "Quiet," said the player with glasses. "After all, you were told about the situation when you came to play. Why scold us if you can't beat them now?" Another player added. "Besides, it's not that we can't help at all. It's just that you didn't give us the ball." "I don't care." The player with purple hair answered. "I don't play anymore. Play with whoever you want. Anyway, this score can no longer be corrected. What should we do, Qingshui? If they both leave, we won't have enough players to continue the match." "This is some kind of dead end," the girl said. The player with purple hair drank water from his bottle and glanced at the two beautiful girls. He drank water and thought, "If these two beauties had come and begged me, then perhaps I might have changed my mind." At this moment, Xiatian decided to ask, "Guys from the art department, two more, come over, anyone?" And several people immediately raised their hands. "Since you can't fight back, I'll show you the difference in ability," our hero said quietly. He looked at the playing court and began to evaluate each opponent. The player with purple hair began to loudly indignant and scream, "You are mediocrity. You are an amateur. Are you crazy? If you can get back at me, I'll be here barking like a dog." So the second half of this basketball game begins. The art department team enters the playground. At the head is Xia Tian himself. "Let's see what other tricks he can do," said the player with purple hair. "Basketball is a real man's sport, and he thinks he can win with a bunch of weaklings." "Idiot," added a second player to the entire t-shirt line. "Great," they quarreled among themselves. "And this time we have very little time left to play." Slyly smiled and said out loud, rival in a white t-shirt, "Just keep making three-pointers." A girl with long red hair supported him. The whistle blew and this basketball battle began. Our hero was in possession of the ball at that moment. The players in white uniforms were distributed throughout the court and overlapped the players in blue uniforms. After making sure that all his teammates were blocked by his opponent, our hero made one right decision. Almost from his score, he swung across the entire field and made a throw into the opponent's basket. The fans who watched this match were simply shocked. What is he doing? He jumps from under his own basket. One fan shouted, "Is he really going to throw the ball?" Another fan shouted. Xiatian hit the ball on the floor several times. Then he jumped high and made a beautiful throw into the far basket. The ball seemed to fly for so long that time stopped. Each player and all fans watched the trajectory of the basketball into the opponent's basket. A few seconds later, the ball fell clearly and evenly into the opponent's hoop. In the stands, the fans began to rejoice, applaud, and whistle. "Wow, what kind of throw was that?" The fans rejoiced. The first 3 points for the team in blue appeared on the scoreboard. Xiatian raised his finger up and said loudly, "This is just the beginning." They continued to shout from the stands about him such phrases as "he is simply a basketball genius." The cousin's sister and her friend were shocked. "This is crazy," a friend said. "I don't even understand how this is possible." Sister admired. After scoring a 3-point shot, our hero took over the game. With deft and quick movements, he moved around the basketball court, dribbling one opponent after another. None of the opponents had time to stop our hero, because the speed of reaction exceeded each of them. Therefore, each of his passes along the court to someone else's hoop ended in success and a goal scored. So it continued over and over again. Each attack was crowned with victory. It only took a few seconds for the young man to beat each player in a light uniform and be already under the opponent's ring. There was only a moment and a few steps left to make the final throw, and literally a second later, our hero pushed off strongly from the playing court, jumped up and scored a basketball into the basket with a beautiful blow from above. The whistle blew and the match was over. 111 points were scored by the team in blue uniform, which was captained by Xia Tian himself. All the guys stood near our hero and discussed the game, but especially the individual qualities of the main player of this team. It was cool. It was amazing. The guys spoke. and two professional players in the blue form stood aside and watched what was happening. Again to the head, and they were overcome with envy. "This bastard is very lucky," said the player with purple hair. "Forget it. Ignore him, and that's it. Let's get out of here," another player said. "Don't leave. Wait a second. I remember someone said that he would bark like a dog. I think that time has come. It's very interesting to see this," the young man said. "You're just all in cahoots. This doesn't count. Let's compete again. If you win, I will bark like a dog," said the player with purple hair. "So that you understand, I'm not afraid of you either." The player in blue answered loudly, "This boy is truly a basketball genius. If I can get him on the basketball team, I don't know how strong he will be in the future." Looking at our hero, the girl with red hair thought. But once he told me, the girl continued to remember, "If you lose, call me a big man." How can I call him that? I thought about it all the time. The girl was angry, nervous, and did not know what to do, Xiatian said as he walked past a beautiful stranger with red hair. "How about that thing you said earlier about the bet?" The cousin stood up. "Brother, forget it. Leave it alone. I don't think she will keep her promise. Or do you think that I am one of those people for whom words are just an empty phrase?" The stranger with red hair shouted loudly and indignantly. Her honor and pride were hurt. The beautiful stranger gathered her thoughts and shouted loudly, "Sister Zhu, great husband!" Xiatian was a little indignant. "Did that sound normal?" Cousin added. "No, it sounded like she was shouting to my husband." But the beautiful stranger with red hair quickly turned around and ran away from them. After this basketball game, our hero named Xiatian went to the house where the swordmaster lived. Xiatian stopped in the courtyard, closed his eyes, raised his head up to the sky, and thought, "These little things in everyday life are completely unimportant." Approaching footsteps were heard to the side. The young man noticed that the swordmaster himself was coming towards him. "Good afternoon, master, you are here," our hero said and began to worship his teacher. "Your father never said anything about martial arts because he didn't want you to follow in his footsteps. But you entered this world, and I will fulfill my promise to your father," the master said. "Today I will teach you the immortal steps of wandering clouds and a sharp finger." The master also added, "Sharp fingers?" the young man asked the master. There was a sea of curiosity in his eyes, and he began to remember. "I have only seen this martial art technique in the TV series. It seems that it was Lu Xiaofeng. Does such a martial art really exist?" The swordmaster continued to speak. "Yes, my boy. This is your father's most famous technique back then, so my father must have been a master in the past." After these words, the teacher began to think, and our hero began to burst with curiosity. "Let's see if I can find out something about my father. Personally, I have never practiced these two martial arts techniques. I confess honestly. Therefore, I will teach you only by the method of inner strength," the teacher said. "The immortal steps of the wandering clouds come from the Jing and the 8 trigrams. The sharp fingers focus on the acupuncture points on the human body and the accuracy of the attack." The teacher spoke slowly and monotonously. Our hero listened carefully. "Speaking about this since childhood, my father asked me to study 100 schools of thought, and Jing and 8 trigrams and acupuncture points of the human body. All this was taught to me by my father. At the time, I thought it was my father's hobby. But I had no idea or understanding that this was the foundation that had been laid for me since then. You have the best talent I've ever seen." The teacher began to speak. "And you can take your father's martial arts to the next level." Meanwhile, in one of the bars in the city, 2 guys began to pester a beautiful girl. A young man with purple hair is there talking. "Beauty, how about you have a drink with us?" His friend kept adding and talking. "Come on, don't be afraid." Then one of the guys grabbed the girl's hand and began to pull her towards him. This obsessively began to flow into obvious rudeness. "Put me down," the girl screamed. Then the girl saw a guy with purple hair and screamed loudly, "Yin Shu!" The guy looked at her but did not do anything. "Yin Shu, let's keep screaming, girl. Help me, please. They pester me. The girl was a little scared when the young man with purple hair said, "Buy things, become my girlfriend, and then I will help you." "How can you take advantage of the fact that a person is in danger?" The girl answered. Soon our cousin's friend appeared. "Chingshui, what happened?" "Thanks, friend. What are you doing? Release your sister immediately," a young man with glasses shouted. "Wait!" A man with a bottle in his hands answered with a loud squeal. "You won't be able to avoid these troubles. Our sports department will be very close. If you agree to be my girlfriend, then I will send someone here," said the young man with purple hair. "I was daydreaming. Don't even think about it." "Very angry," the cousin shouted back. "Well, let's leave this aside. Last time I talked about betting." The young man with purple hair continued talking. Suddenly the young man heard loud footsteps behind him. He fell silent abruptly. A huge, muscular, big man appeared behind him. The man asked in a quiet but rough voice, "Are you her boyfriend?" The young man immediately became frightened and began to answer in a trembling voice. No, I don't know her at all." A healthy, pumped-up man got angry and said, "No, it's you." "Girl, let's go have a drink with me. We'll have a good time," the man said. The young people who stood nearby began to be indignant. The guy with the glasses said, "Stop pestering our girl." "What do you even want from her?" another young man asked. "And you youngsters better get out of sight and take care that I don't break your neck," the healthy bald man said, smiling. The girl was nervous and worried. He had a look of panic and fear on his face. She picked up the phone and began pressing buttons. At this moment, our hero was in the house. Xiatian's phone suddenly rang. An unknown number was written on the screen. Xiatian was currently training and working out with dumbbells. He maintained his physical fitness. The young man picked up the phone and heard the alarming voice of his sister cousin. "What?" "Okay, I'll come now," the boy answered. Our hero quickly began to get ready and put on his shirt. "It's time to practice the skills the master taught me," the young man thought. He quickly got dressed and ran out of the door straight into the street as fast as he could. First of all, these are the immortal steps of wandering clouds, our hero thought at that second. Xiatian jumped out onto the road and began to run with all his might. He ran so fast that his speed even overtook cars driving along the road. One of the drivers sitting behind the wheel saw a young man overtaking his moving car. He was simply in shock. "What is it? How is this possible?" The driver was surprised. Literally a few minutes later, our hero was already near this hot establishment, where his sister cousin got into trouble. Big, very bald. The man stood and was indignant to the whole room. "What are you looking at? It's none of your business, you know. Go home," the bald man spoke. And after a few seconds, the young people were lying on the floor and writhing in pain. They got it from this healthy bald guy. "They don't even know what they're made of," the man said. The bald, healthy man laughed throughout the room and spoke. "The soundproofing in this room is very good, right? Even if you scream at the top of your lungs, no one here will hear you." Suddenly, a voice came from behind the bald man. "Not only will no one hear," the man suddenly froze and fell silent. "Not only will no one hear, but no one will see." It was the voice of our hero named Xiatian. He was holding some wires in his left and right hand. The bald, healthy man was shocked and screamed indignantly. Where did this kid come from? The rest of his friends began to answer. "I didn't notice him. I didn't see him either." Xiatian took a fighting stance and began to spin his body with his arms and legs. These movements were so fast that it seemed like a hurricane wind was appearing around him. "It's time to put your sharp fingers to the test," our hero thought. This made the big, strong, bald man very angry. "Beat him to death, I order," he told his friends. At the same instant, several young people rushed to attack our hero. Each of them tried to strike the strongest blow and give the young man a good beating. Xiatian stood calmly and controlled the situation. With his X-ray gaze, he had already calculated the movement of each participant in this brawl. He was just waiting for the right opportunity. And as soon as this occasion came, the young man began to use his signature techniques, which the master taught him. He quickly moved near these people and inflicted his insidious blows with his hands and feet on each of them. The offenders flew in different directions and groaned in pain. Less than a minute passed, and now all the participants in this fight were lying on the floor. And our hero put his hands in his trouser pockets and looked at them. "Shatian, you're just great," said Sister Cousin. "You did such a great job of dealing with each of them." After these words, our hero turned around and saw that the main boss of this company remained, the same healthy bald man. The healthy bald man was filled with fear. In rage and fear, he screamed loudly, "Who the hell are you?" Then the young man walked up to the big bald man and grabbed his shirt with his hand. "You recently said that this room is very well soundproofed, right?" Not immediately after these words, Xiatian pushed the offender forward with a strong kick of his foot. A tall, healthy, pumped-up bald man, screaming in pain, flew several meters to the side. The blow was so strong that his back crashed into the wall. A pumped-up bald man was lying on the floor and begging for mercy. "No one will come even if you scream at the top of your lungs." The young man answered him. Xiatian closed the door to this private room behind him. Now in this room there was only him and this big healthy offender. Girls and boys stood near this door and listened to what was happening there. The sounds of fighting and fighting were heard from behind the closed door. The guys continued to stand near the door and listen. They continued to hear sounds of help, cries of breaking bones. After a few minutes, everything calmed down and became quiet. And after a few seconds, the door of this room began to slowly open. Our hero named Xiatian began to leave the room. There was not a single bruise or scratch on him. He was in full bloom and pleased with himself. And then he said, "It's all over." Then the door to the room opened completely, and immediately the girls and boys saw the following picture. A healthy, pumped-up man was lying on the floor, completely beaten. His body was covered in cuts and bruises. An ambulance and police arrived at the building of this drinking establishment. Several police officers quickly ran into the building. People on the street began to talk. "What's happening?" one girl asked. "I heard that there was a fight between bandits." Another girl answered. The police entered the building and began questioning everyone. "Wait, why are you taking him away? He is the one who saved us all." The cousin was indignant. The policeman answered, "We just took him in to help us with our investigation." "Girl, please don't interfere in our business." Xiatian was in a good mood and smiling. "Don't worry, sister. My case should not be considered as an attack, but as self-defense. Nothing will happen to me. Trust me." But the cousin was very worried about her beloved brother. She understood that some injustice was happening now. The pumped-up big bald man was placed on a stretcher and taken away in an ambulance. "Find the best lawyer," the man shouted loudly. "Find Mr. Liu. This story can't end like this." My cousin watched all this and heard everything. "I don't know what other trump cards he has, so I will have to deal with this knowledge," the cousin said, and began to call her mother. "Mom, something happened to Xiatian." "I already know," Mom answered. "I'll take care of the rest. Don't worry, my girl." After talking with my mother's daughter, she immediately began dialing the number on the phone. Help was needed urgently. "Hello, Mr. Zhu," Mom said. "I have a favor to ask of you. I want you to help out a good guy." The gentleman answered. "Save someone? You know, whether there is or not is not very important. I can't do anything." But my mother still continued to insist on her opinion. "The person I want you to save is Long's son." "What?" Mr. answered. "Is this Mr. Long's son? Wait, I'll take care of it." And at that moment they asked my mother, "Miss, is something wrong?" After this question, my mother put the phone on the table. A girl and a man were sitting in front of the woman. They sat in armchairs and looked attentively at the woman. Mom answered, "It's okay. Let's continue talking about Bing Bing." After some time, our hero named Xiatian was already leaving the police station building. He came out in a good mood with a smile on his face, as if nothing had happened. The young man looked back at the police station and thought, "It's strange. They said that they would at least sue me for assault and bodily harm. Why did they let me go after one phone call?" The young man walked slowly down the street and admired the good weather, although he was constantly spinning different thoughts about what was happening in his head. There was a lot he didn't understand. A second later, our hero's phone rang. He picked up the phone and answered, Hello. A voice came from the phone. You're a capable guy. You suddenly became good at fighting. You met Yin, right? So it was my aunt? You helped me, right? Do you know Yin? He is now my master, the boy said. That's what I thought. Come over tomorrow, I want to talk to you, Aunt said. I wonder what my aunt wants to tell me, our boy thought. It was a very beautiful, warm evening. Bright white stars have already begun to appear in the sky. There were bright and beautiful advertising signs on the houses. Walking around the city, our hero approached the street cafe. There were many cozy tables on different sides of the street, and the young man thought that he could have dinner here. As soon as the young man sat down at his table and began to look at the menu, beautiful girls approached him. He began to understand long ago that he had become popular with girls and women. And you are beautiful, said the girl in the red dress. Next to our hero stood two charming girls. One was in a red, luxurious short dress, and the second had a sporty style. Handsome brother, can we share this table with you? Asked the beauty in a red dress. Our hero at that moment was simply pleased with himself. He felt like a star. It is an honor for me to have dinner at the same table with such two beautiful girls, said the young man. Just say yes. You don't have to flirt with anyone, the girl answered in sportswear. It won't be like that. This guy is just very kind and well-mannered. This is rare now, the girl in the red dress said and began to calm her friend down a little. Our hero sat and admired these beauties. He didn't understand why these girls sat down at his table. After all, there were a lot of empty tables nearby. Shatian looked closely and very carefully at the inappropriate behavior of the girl in sportswear. And then he said, Miss, you are sick. This greatly angered the girl in blue sportswear. She slammed her fist on the table and spoke loudly. You're the one who's sick. You're just a terrible scoundrel. I'll put you in jail for harassment. A friend in a red dress tried to calm her down. No, you're wrong. I'm not harassing you. I'm just saying that you're very sick. Our hero continued to look at the girl and talk. Tell me, have you been suffering from insomnia or dry mouth and bad mood lately? If I'm not mistaken, you won't live to see 30, the boy said in a calm voice. The girl was shocked and even changed her face. You? How do you know? Who are you? She asked the guy. Shatian continued to look closely at the girl in the blue sports suit. At this moment, his senses and vision were working. And then he issued a phrase. To be precise, you only live until you are 27. Isn't it next year? The girl in the tracksuit asked in a calm but upset voice. The girl in the red dress was simply shocked by this information. Sister Bean don't believe his stupidity. The girl spoke. She spoke and reassured. Let's go. I don't want to eat anymore. The beauty in a blue tracksuit said, got up from the table and began to leave this establishment. Hey, wait. What if there is a cure for this disease? The girl in the red dress asked our hero in an alarming voice. The young man laughed. Now she is so angry that if I told her about the treatment, she would attack me and beat me. The beautiful girl in the red dress was heartbroken. She began to understand that everything said was true. What is the treatment? The girl asked. And then quietly and absolutely calmly our hero answered, just become my wife. The girl in the red dress simply did not expect such a daring answer. Her eyes widened in surprise. She expected anything, but not such an answer. And a second later, the girl in the red dress laughed loudly at the top of her voice. You're so funny, the girl said, after which the girl handed our hero her business card with a phone number and said, I'm going to convince her, and don't forget to call me later. And then a charming girl in a red dress leaned towards our hero's head, kissed him and said in a quiet, languid voice, Agreed? Xia Tian was simply beaming with happiness. The girl in the red dress got up and went to catch up with her friend. Bing Bing, wait for me, don't rush. Our hero watched these beauties with a greedy gaze. She just came up and kissed my forehead. But she asked absolutely nothing about the price. The young man was fascinated by these girls. He sat at the table for a long time, did not eat anything, and constantly remembered every movement and every word of these beautiful girls. The next morning came. The weather was great. Our young man ran to a large building where his aunt was. Of course, he was late and understood that now he could get into trouble for this. Therefore, every minute counted, and he was in a hurry. Oh no, I'm late. How embarrassing. Now I will definitely get it from my aunt. Our hero thought about this and ran even faster down the corridor. Within a moment, the young man was pressing the doorknob of his aunt's office. Shatian entered the office and immediately began to apologize. Sorry, Aunt, I'm late. His aunt was sitting in a chair opposite her. A girl and a man were sitting with her. Suddenly, a familiar voice was heard. It was a woman's voice. It's you? A question was asked to our hero. Shatian froze in surprise. Opposite his aunt was the same girl, the girl he liked and the girl he talked about dying to. Our hero's aunt was surprised. Do you know each other? She asked her nephew. How could I know such a scoundrel? A beautiful girl in a blue sports jacket began to be indignant. The girl sitting next to her said, Bing Bing, what are you talking about? Shatian sat down on the sofa next to his aunt. What did you do to the girl? She asked her nephew indignantly. Believe me, nothing. Our hero was justified. Anyway, this is the groom I found for you. The aunt said about her nephew, pointed at him with her hand and smiled. The girl's face immediately changed. Her eyes became wide in surprise and her mouth opened. She didn't expect this at all. Shatian was also shocked by his aunt's words. His face changed, and they practically shouted in unison only one question. What? A charming girl in a blue sports jacket jumped up from her chair and began to be indignant. Tall and majestic, handsome, attractive, suave and elegant. This is not the same as what I asked. She spoke, pointing her finger at the young man. It's not like I'm asking you to marry him. I just want to help your father get through this difficult time. Aunt spoke and smiled. The young man smiled and thought at that moment, Auntie, you are so brave that I can't even argue with you. A charming girl in a blue sports jacket just stood there and was silent. She didn't know what to say in this situation. Then everyone began to bow and talk. Thank you very much for your help. Walking along a long corridor with his aunt, our hero began to find out. What does this all mean? Do you want me to pretend to be her fiancé? Yes, this Mayor Lin is a good person, but he has no background, and his daughter is persecuting Yu Wen Hao from the Yu Wen family. So I suggest you be a shield to help them, Aunt said. Does my aunt trust me that much? Do you really want me to fight such a powerful family? Kazal Xia Tian. Because I know that tigers don't have children with dogs, Aunt answered. For you say, but I don't even know what my parents are like. You don't tell me anything about them, the young man said. Okay, in exchange for your help, I'll give you some information. Is your mom still alive? Aunt continued. After these words, our hero suddenly stopped and froze. His eyes widened in surprise. He was filled with joy. They went outside to the car, the aunt walked ahead, and our hero caught up with her. That's it? So what next? Where is my mom now? The boy asked a question. It will be better if you know. Auntie quickly answered. If one day I disappear too, then please take care of Qing Shui. She is the only cousin. Fine, the aunt said and got into her company car. The young man stood and did not know what to say. In just a few minutes, he received so much information about his mother that now I didn't know how to live with it. The next day came. It was a beautiful sunny summer day. Our hero was walking down the street and constantly turning thoughts in his head. After Auntie said it, I didn't want to ask any more questions. He probably had a reason for not telling me, but I didn't expect that she would take the opportunity to give me a challenge, and I took it and agreed to it. I'm such a wimp. The boy continued to think. Shatian, could you do me a favor? Auntie spoke then, and I immediately answered, okay. The young man constantly recalled this scene. Suddenly, a loud female scream was heard. Thief! Thief! Shatian abruptly stopped and turned back to see what was happening there. Behind him, a motorcyclist on an orange motorcycle snatched the girl's purse and tried to escape from the crime scene. A motorcyclist passed a young man at high speed. And in the chapter of our hero, a plan has already matured. The motorcycle was traveling at very high speed and every second was moving further and further away from our hero. Xiatian tightly clenched his hand into a fist and said, "You showed up just in time, boy. I was just looking for a way to vent my anger now." And the young man continued to clench his hand into a fist with even greater force. So it seemed that his tendon ligaments were already crunching. "Immortal steps," the young man said loudly, and after this phrase he quickly began to move after the motorcycle. Immortal steps of wandering clouds. The young man continued to talk and picked up his running speed even more. Every second he runs faster and faster. He knew that his ability was enough to catch up with this motorcycle. The motorcyclist changed gears and began to pick up speed. He moved even faster. He rode and laughed out loud. "Who can catch up with me? Who? My horse has so much horsepower." But in fact, the young man was already approaching the motorcycle. There was just a little time left, and he would catch up with him. The motorcyclist saw in the mirror that a guy was catching up with him. He was so surprised that he opened his helmet. "Who are you? Where do you have so much strength to catch up with my motorcycle?" he asked the young man. At this time, Xiatian was already running next to the motorcycle. Then the guy pushed off strongly from the ground and jumped right on top of the Nazi. Xiatian grabbed the motorcyclist with his hands. He performed his signature techniques that the master taught him. Then, with a strong throw, he pulled him out of the motorcycle and threw it to the side. The motorcycle continued to move quickly, but its driver was already flying to the side. The motorcycle immediately fell to the side of the road and started smoking. But the wheels continued to spin quickly, and on the other side of the road, covered in dust and screaming in pain, lay the motorcycle driver. He lay there and could not get up. "You deserve it," the young man said loudly and confidently to the motorcyclist. Then he lifted the woman's purse up and went to meet the girl. At that second, our hero heard some steps behind him. These steps were coming faster and faster towards him. The boy stopped. I looked around. Behind our hero stood a girl in a blue tracksuit and was already striking the young man in the head with her left foot. Xiatian quickly and easily grabbed that leg with his left hand and stopped it. It was easy for him. The charming girl was surprised how it was so easy and simple that he guessed the trajectory of the blow of her foot, as if he knew what she would do now. "Bing Bing? Is it you again?" "Carefully?" the young man asked the girl. At the moment, he didn't understand what else she could do to him. Last time she screamed, accused him of harassment, and now she just decided to sneakily kick him. "You're a scumbag. Don't call me that. My name is Lin Bingbing. Only this way and no other way," the girl said indignantly, and again began to swing her arms and legs towards the guy. "I'm a police officer," the pretty girl said and showed her ID with a photo. "You are suspected of robbery and you are caught with a stolen bag. Come with me." "I?" the young man asked in surprise and laughing. "It's not me. On the contrary, I helped. If it weren't for me, this bag would have gone very far with that motorcyclist." After some time, the same woman in a dress from whom the motorcyclist had snatched her bag from her hands ran up to the young man or girl. "It's not him. This is a misunderstanding." A woman screamed. "Look, he wasn't the one who stole my bag. He was the one who helped me get it back. He's just a hero." The woman continued talking. "This all sounds a little confusing," the girl in the blue tracksuit said and grabbed her head. "Basically, he's a bag thief," the young man named Xia Tian Yi said and pointed his finger to the side. "Take this, here's your bag," our hero said in a satisfied and calm voice and began to give away the woman's handbag. The woman smiled sweetly and replied, "Thank you." "And here's another," the guy said and handed the money to the girl. "What is this? I don't understand at all why you give me your money. My money is still there in my purse," the girl answered. At this moment the young man laughed. "Have you forgotten? It was I who borrowed money from you at the hospital. I should have returned it a long time ago, but I forgot, sorry." "Oh, you're the same guy from last time." The girl began to speak in surprise. "Of course I remember you." "Yes, it's me," the guy answered. "3 under the very guy who didn't take 5 million. I began to remember and laugh. "Girl, is that really all you remember?" "My name is Xiatian," he said. The young man also laughed. "Thank you for today, and for saving my bag. Will you have time?" "I'd like to invite you to lunch," the girl said. "Sorry, but another time. I have things to do today, the young man said, waved his hand at her, and began to leave. Wait, I need to take a statement from you. A girl in a blue tracksuit screamed loudly after her. Our hero went about his business, and the girl continued to look at his back and think, I wonder why this guy runs so fast. Where does this gift come from? After what was happening on the street, the young beautiful girl went to the very tall building where she had recently been practically married off. A girl in a blue tracksuit opened the door to the room and said, Sorry for being late. I encountered one case right on the street, and I just brought the thieves to the police station. And after the girl said this, she was simply shocked. She fell silent abruptly, and her eyes began to widen. Surprise knew no bounds. In the room, at the table next to his aunt, was the same young man who had just recently caught up with the motorcycle and taken her purse. It was the same Jia Tian. He sat calmly at the table and drank a drink. Why is it you again? Why is it always you? Are you stalking me? There was loud indignation. Girl in a blue tracksuit. Over the past few days, you have come into my life too much. I don't understand what's going on at all. The girl was indignant, and our hero just sat silently and smiled. Why don't you ask how I'm doing? What kind of bad manners are these? Where does this ignorance come from? The young man spread his arms to the sides and smiled. This time you will need to work with him, the aunt said to the girl in a stern voice. What? Work with him? The girl asked indignantly. Maybe. This mission involves tracking down the location where the level 3 killer, Dark Knight, is hiding. Once you complete this task, you will be able to join the Special Operations Division. The aunt continued to talk, and the girl listened attentively. But, I wanted to object, girl. None, but, Auntie answered harshly. Remember, the rules of the Special Operations Department is not to ask questions about people or things that you have nothing to do with. The woman continued talking. Shatian, here is information about this person. You have to find him before he finds out about it, the aunt said, and handed her nephew a blue folder with documents. Shatian took the documents in his hands and began to look at them. Aunt continued talking. Have you always wanted to know about your father's past? When do what you're told. It was late evening, and the stars scattered all over the sky. Our heroes left the building, and the girl in a blue sports suit immediately began to talk. I'm warning you, this is the only chance to get into the Special Operations Department. If you fail, I will make you suffer. I was asked to help you, and you didn't even thank me. The guy answered calmly. I don't need your help. Is this clear? I don't see how you can help me. Looking into the eyes, the girl spoke. Let's do a test, the young man said. Do you know what this man does? Our hero said and pointed his finger to the side at the man. An unknown young man stood near the bar. He had dark trousers, a light jacket, a light shirt. Basically nothing special. He looks like a white-collar office worker, right? Or is he a bank employee? The girl began to throw out her options. Although I could be wrong. No, it's unlikely. My intuition does not let me down. He's definitely an office worker. The girl continued to reason. No. For example, I think he is a security guard. The young man began to speak. Are you kidding me? Do security guards dress like that? The girl asked indignantly. I said he was a security guard. I didn't say he was at work. Aren't you in regular clothes now? The guy asked the girl. At that moment, near the bar, the men began to communicate. Why are you here in these clothes? One man asked. I worked your shift and didn't have time to change clothes. Another man answered. Our heroes heard this, and the girl was simply surprised. I can't believe it. How did you know this? She asked in surprise. His suit and shoes were clean and well-groomed. This means he doesn't usually wear a suit like this, and every time a car appears in the parking lot, he can't help but appreciate the width of the parking space. The girl in the blue tracksuit was pleasantly shocked and surprised. Now I'll ask you again. Do you think I'm worthy of helping you now? The young man asked in a confident and calm voice. Then you can continue to help me in my search for purpose, she said. The girl quickly grabbed our hero's hand with her hand, and she began to pull him along with her. The two of them began to head towards the bar. We approached the doors to get inside and scout out the situation there. A girl DJ performed on stage and played catchy music. Young people danced around the stage and raised their hands in delight. Friends, show me your hands. Repeat after me. Swing with me. The DJ girl was screaming. Our hero looked at each other. Tell me how we will find him in this crowd now, the police girl asked. Just dance with me, the young man answered. What? The girl asked in surprise. Your search methods are very interesting. Our heroes began to dance. Can you find him? The girl asked. Keep your voice down so they don't hear us. I'll make sure I find him. But there's no need to move so unnaturally, Xiaotian answered. I don't think at all that he will be able to find someone in this dark room, where the lights and music are blinking and almost no one is visible. Did the girl think at that moment? As long as I have these eyes, I can find you even if you are in the dark or disguised. This is exactly what our hero was thinking about now, looking at all the people in the dark room. Now he relied on his X-ray vision. All the people at this disco continued to jump and dance. They raised their hands up and sang along to the songs that were played in this club. He is not in this room. The young man answered clearly and confidently. I can say this with complete confidence. The girl was indignant. How? But intelligence reported that he was here. The intelligence may be correct, let's wait, Xiaotian said, hugged his friend by the shoulder, and they began to look at all the people in this club in the rhythm of the dance. Don't touch me, please. The girl began to be indignant. She quickly tried to remove the young man's hand from her shoulder. Okay, I may not even touch you. The young man spoke and smiled about the current situation. The girl at that moment was simply an impregnable fortress. Bartender! Our hero shouted loudly to the entire room. And at that second, Xiaotian noticed something. His gaze stopped. A yellow light appeared in the eyes, began to work in the X-ray view. A man stood near the slightly open door and lit his cigarette. This is him, the young man thought. The bartender broke the silence. Take the wine you ordered, the bartender said. Thanks, I completely forgot about him, the guy answered. Holding the glass in his hand, our hero continued to watch the man. The target has appeared, the guy said. The man continued to smoke near the door. But he doesn't look anything like himself from the profile. The girl expressed her opinion. He just had facial plastic surgery, the guy answered. How do you know this? The girl's curiosity was bursting. Please don't look back, he's standing right behind you, the young man said to the girl in a quiet voice. The beauty froze in place. The man our guys were watching approached the bar and began talking to the bartender. Our heroes had an anxious pause. Xiaotian understood that this man could notice that he was being followed. Or perhaps his partner had already revealed herself long ago. Something had to be done urgently. Then our hero quickly extended his hand forward. At that second, he was very determined. With one deft movement of his hand, he grabbed the girl by the head and pressed her to him. Then he immediately kissed me. It was a very passionate kiss. Passionate and unexpected. What are you doing right now? The charming girl asked in fear. And she continued to look into the young man's eyes. Don't move. Just don't move, Xiaotian whispered faintly. After that, our hero gently took the girl's chin with his hand and began to move her face towards his lips. Your behavior is too unnatural and will probably be noticed by him, the young man said in a quiet voice. The man they were watching turned around and looked at them. He saw a couple loving each other, kissing passionately. Our friends continued to follow this man. What's next? The girl asked. Let's contact our superiors? How does this idea sound? Our mission was only to find him. Each member of the Quicksand has an assassination task. If we do not intervene in time, then most likely someone will be killed while awaiting orders from above. Xiaotian answered the girl. Do you want to make an immediate arrest? The girl clarified. We should at least try, the young man said, and again passionately kissed the charming girl. The man himself turned around and looked at the couple. Are you still kissing me? This is my first kiss, the girl said. Actually, we came here on missions, not just to kiss. The men continued to sit quietly and wait for something on the bar counter. He didn't drink or eat anything. The bartender approached the man and brought something in his hands. "Sir, this is the package that was given to you," the bartender said, and handed this package to the man. The bartender carefully placed the parcel next to the man on the table. Our heroes continued to monitor everything that was happening on the bar counter. Suddenly, the man stood up from his seat and spoke loudly to the bartender. "Bring me 2 glasses of red bat for the 2 people behind me. Forget everything. Stop pretending, he seems to have noticed," the young man said, lowering his eyes in a frustrated voice. "Then why are you kissing me just like that?" The girl began to be indignant. "Let's go get him." The man began to leave the bar, and the young man named Xiatian, satisfied, smiled. The girl quickly began to try to catch up with the man leaving the bar. Our hero stayed behind and tried to stop her. Behind the young man, several people appeared who looked more like security guards than like people relaxing in this bar. "Is someone trying to stop us from pursuing him?" the boy thought. Xiatian understood that there would be a brawl and a fight. Therefore, he quickly and sharply turned around on his feet in the center of the hall, to be ready to take this fight. Our hero folded 2 fingers on his palm and began to attack these scoundrels. He did everything he was taught, a recent master. Xiatian moved so fast that the man did not have time to follow him. In a split second, he found himself in one place, then in another, and of course, he delivered his insidious blows. He hit his opponent with 2 fingers directly at the head, and they immediately fell as if dead. After these blows, they could not even get up. There were only a few people left to eliminate. Therefore, a few more signature blows, and these opponents were already lying on the floor. The men who had just been beaten by one young man did not understand how it happened. They lay on the floor and did not have the strength to get up. "What's happening? I don't feel my body." One man spoke. "Damn, we missed it," the girl said as she left the bar. "This is the man from the quicksand. It would be strange if you managed to catch up with him." The young man answered calmly, "How dare you talk about me like that? Why didn't you leave the bar for so long?" The girl began to be loudly indignant. "I just left my phone at the bar and went back to get it." Smiling, the young man continued to speak. "What the hell? What should we do now? Let me surprise you one more time. You already know us all and can do everything." Confused, the girl said, "Don't worry, wear this one and you'll see," the young man said and handed the glasses to the charming girl. "What is this?" the girl asked curiously. She held her glasses with both hands and with big eyes, looked at everything she saw. "I don't believe my eyes. I've never seen anything like this before." The girl spoke in surprise. "This is just fantastic. This is night vision powder. My aunt gave it to me. I just took the opportunity to sprinkle some on." The young man spoke, and on the street along the road there was a white-blue trail. All this was clearly visible through special glasses. The girl was simply delighted. "Well then, let's quickly continue the chase. We need to catch up with this scoundrel and quickly deal with him. Or at least arrest him." Enthusiastically, the girl said. "So, are you going to chase him?" the young man asked and laughed. "Are you serious now? What's wrong?" she proudly asked the girl to the young man. "You have been discovered. You were discovered because you were unnatural. And now you wear such flashy glasses that it would be strange not to come under suspicion. That's the whole secret." Xiatian continued to smile and speak. Our hero looked around, saw something, and went in that direction. "Wait!" his girlfriend shouted loudly. Xiatian saw a girl with vulgar behavior on the side of the road. She was brightly dressed and smoking a cigarette. Our hero caught her attention and called out to her, "Listen, here's 500 yuan for you. Please sell me your wig and clothes. Believe me, this is needed for a good cause. About yourself, you will buy more." The young man said to the woman of easy virtue, "What are you talking about, crazy? This is my real hair," the woman answered indignantly. "Don't pretend, you're a man, your stubble is visible," the young man said in a serious voice. After this truth, the women even dropped the cigarette from their hands. "You are truly crazy. What are you talking about?" The woman continued to be indignant. "You won't be able to get more than 100 yuan for your cheap items." So tell me, will you sell them to me, or do you want me to call the police? The young man said in a serious voice and picked up his phone. Frightened, the man, dressed as a woman, quickly began to undress and give his things to our hero. After a few minutes he was left in only his shorts, and in his left hand he gave away a pink bra. Xia Tian. Even in this situation, thanks to his X-ray vision, he determined that this was not a woman, but a man in disguise. Having taken the things from this transvestite, he took them to his girlfriend. Here, put this on, the young man said and handed the wig to the beautiful girl. If you change your clothes and put on a wig, you can continue your surveillance, the guy said. This is terrible, too disgusting. I don't want it. The girl in the blue tracksuit objected. I don't understand you. Do you still want to be on the special operations team? If so, why can't you even do such a small thing? The young man began to be indignant. The girl picked up the clothes and didn't know what to answer. Because Xia Tian was indeed right now. A few minutes passed. The girl changed clothes and called her friend named Xia Tian. I'm ready. Take a look. What do you think? Thanks, girl. She looked gorgeous, sexy, and simply stunning. She was practically unrecognizable. I made a fool of myself today. Knowing that if the mission fails, then you will see what I will do to you. You're definitely not going to get well. I promise you this. The girl was indignant. Our heroes approached another entertaining night establishment. It was a late-night karaoke bar. I think he walked into this karaoke bar. I suggest we come in and have a look around too, the young man said. I wonder if I'm not the only one who can see with night vision jump? How do you know he went there? I began to wonder, girl. This is a professional instinct. I knew when I saw which direction you were looking. Our hero began to come up with excuses so as not to tell the truth. Okay, let's say I believed you, the girl answered. Even now I cannot say that I can see without these glasses. I can't admit to her and tell her that I have some peculiarity and gift. Looking at the girl, the young man thought. Young people entered a karaoke bar. Approaching the reception, they began to ask the girl and the guy. While our hero stood near the reception, he thought, I still can't see through walls with my eyes, but through glass and doors I can see much more than the average person. Looking around, our hero understood. He's here. His gaze became serious and concentrated. Passing by near one of the doors, he stopped and said to himself again, that he's here. Xia Tian began to carefully look at the door, including his own vision. He saw a girl with green hair standing next to the man. Listen, you dropped the photo. Is that your girlfriend? The girl asked at that moment. Xia Tian concentrated and with his X-ray gaze saw and examined the photograph in that girl's hands. It was a photograph of Zheng Ru. Give it to me, the man in the suit said loudly, and snatched the photograph from the hands of the girl with green hair. So she's the target of the murder, our hero thought. An employee of the karaoke bar approached Xia Tian and said, Sir, your room for the two of you is here, and he pointed with his hand to the next door. They're going well, answered the young man. Just be quiet. I found it, Xia Tian said. What? The girl asked in surprise. How did you find it when the night vision powder became almost invisible when you came here? This is impossible. Anyway, I just found it. Listen to me carefully. I'll stay here, and you go and report. He shouldn't leave here for a while. The young man spoke. I understand you. I'll do it. The girl agreed. They stopped in the lobby of a karaoke bar and began to discuss the current situation in a quiet voice. The girl took the phone, dialed the number, and began calling to report the current situation. Xia Tian decided to open one of the doors and see what was there. Very quietly, he pressed the doorknob and opened the door. Behind the door was a corridor. He went both to the left and to the right. But most importantly, along the entire perimeter, there were CCTV cameras hanging on the walls closer to the ceiling. There were cameras everywhere. Every 10 meters there was a video camera hanging on the wall near the ceiling. There was no hiding from this observation. Xiatian just stood near the door for a while and counted the number of video cameras. With his vision, he assessed the situation. I calculated all my moves in advance. An interesting idea came to our hero's mind. He found a coin in his trouser pocket. He carefully pulled it out, and he started fiddling with his fingers. After that, Xiatian pretended that his sneaker laces were untied. He crouched down to tie them while he watched the security camera, and then, absolutely imperceptibly, and with a very deft movement of his fingers, he threw this coin to break the video camera. The coin hit the glass. As soon as the video surveillance camera broke, a girl came out of the next door in this corridor. She was waving her hand and saying goodbye to someone at that moment. "Thank you, sir. Please contact me next time." The girl is speaking. Xiatian sat and walked along, tying the laces on his sneakers, but he saw everything himself, and most importantly, heard everything. Our hero immediately walked into this open door from which the girl had just come out. He saw a man sitting there, lighting a cigarette. Same hairstyle and same hair color. Xiatian walked through the open door and began to look at the man who seemed already familiar to him. "It's great we met again," our hero said, smiling. The man screamed loudly from surprise and fear. "Who let you in?" He was so overcome with emotion that his hands shook and he dropped his cigarette. Looking at the boy, the man remembered that this was the same one from the bar, and he definitely had to break away from it. The man who was smoking quickly stood up from behind his back and hid the pistol. "I don't understand or know what you're talking about. Turn around, boy, I'll call the police if you don't leave here now." The man spoke. Our hero immediately decided in 1 second that he needed to quickly run towards this man in order to disarm him. Immortal steps of wandering clouds. He said this phrase out loud, and he ran quickly. The man didn't even have time to think of anything before he received a punch right in the Adam's apple. The blow was so strong that it took his breath away, and he stopped breathing. A few seconds later, having come to his senses, the man began to look around, but there was no one nearby. He didn't even understand who he was aiming his pistol at. She, our hero, was already behind him. With super strength, super speed made him invisible. Hiding behind his back, the man with the gun, our hero grabbed him with his forearm and began to choke him. The man began to sweat from fear and began to scream and call for help. Xiatian did not stop applying the chokehold and squeezed her hands on this scoundrel's throat more and more tightly. This scoundrel's complexion began to turn blue. A few more seconds passed, and the man closed his eyes and passed out. Our hero exhaled heavily and thought, "Not long ago I had to hide from the people of the quicksand, but now I can handle one without much effort. All this, of course, is thanks to the skills that my master taught me." Without signs of life, the man fell to the floor. He was defeated. Xiatian looked at the table on which there was a bottle of liquor and several glasses. On the table, he saw an interesting package. "What's inside?" Our hero asked himself a question. Xiatian walked up to the table, unwrapped the package, and saw there an interesting green dagger with a handle on which hieroglyphs were written. "Is this a dagger?" the boy asked himself. "I think that this dagger will be useful to me in the future. Such things are not thrown around," our hero thought. He took it in his hands and tried to wave it in front of him. Then he touched the blade of the dagger with his finger and said, "I have never seen such sharp knives before. This dagger is clearly not for opening cans." Our hero thought, "It's a good blade. I'll take it with me. Don't let the goodness go to waste." "Good thing," the young man said and put it under the elastic band of his socks. After some time, our heroes met. Xiatian stood quietly and calmly, leaning his back against the wall. He was confident and absolutely calm. The girl approached Xiatian and said, "Your aunt will arrive soon. She asked us to leave as soon as possible so as not to scare him away." "No problem." "Okay, let's do that," the young man answered. "Today I am truly grateful to you more than ever. You know, when I join the Special Operations Department, I will definitely thank you properly." The girl shared her impressions. Xiatian tried to understand what she meant, and how exactly is she going to thank him. The girl who our hero liked so much waved her hand, shouted goodbye to him, and began to leave. As soon as his girlfriend left, the young man took out his mobile phone and began dialing a number. "Hello, Zhengru?" A young man started talking on the phone. "In our turbulent times, we need to be much more careful. I just dealt with a murderer who tried to kill himself." "What? Murderer? Where is Jiatian now?" The girl began to worry. "I'll pick you up now. We can talk." She continued to answer the phone to our hero. At that moment, while our hero was talking on the phone, a fight was taking place next to him. A fight broke out, and it was not clear who was beating whom, but they were even kicking. "Okay, see you later. I'll call you back later," Jiatian quickly said and hung up. He saw two young men beating a third man. Why did this happen, and how did this fight arise? Of course he didn't know. "I don't want to get into a street fight, but I also can't just stand by and watch a passerby be beaten." Our hero began to think about this constantly. All sorts of different thoughts visited his head. He grabbed his head and his hair with his hands and began to think about what was the right thing to do in this situation. Looking again at these passers-by, they continued to beat the guy lying on the ground. Xiatian couldn't stand it. "I don't think it should be like this. This is wrong. If I am endowed with such a gift, then I should help ordinary people. I'm an ordinary person," the young man said to himself. He came closer to the guys who started the fight. "Hey, it's a little overkill when several people beat up one. Don't you think so?" our hero said loudly. The bald guy turned around and said in a menacing voice, "Who is this? You know, mind your own business. Go where you were going." The second man also looked at our hero behind his eyes. Taking advantage of the pause, the guy who was beaten quickly rose to his feet and attacked the offender standing next to him. He grabbed the bald man's arm and bit him hard on the arm. It was very unexpected and painful. The boy bit so hard that blood flowed from the offender's fingers. There was even a slight crunch, as if he had bitten a tendon. A man in a white shirt ran up to his friend and poked the boy in the back with a strong kick. "Let him go quickly," said the man in the white shirt. "You little bastard, quickly let go of my hand," the bald man shouted loudly. "Not bad, you have a lot of energy, I like it." Looking at the struggling boy, our hero said out loud. The two men began to kick the poor boy lying on the ground. At this moment, our hero stood up to me and shouted loudly to them, "Let me help you." This was very unexpected for the bandits who beat the boy. Xiatian quickly ran up to these scoundrels and, jumping with his feet, began to deliver his signature blows, which the master taught him. It was so fast, impressive, and beautiful that the men didn't even have time to understand anything. The villains flew in different directions, writhed, and screamed in pain. Xiatian walked closer to the men who were lying on the ground and writhing in pain. "Next time, don't mock the weak if you consider yourself strong," the boy said. A young boy was kneeling in front of our hero. His arms and entire face were covered in bruises and abrasions. He was covered in blood. "Good afternoon." He looked at our hero with his eyes and said, "Wait. Please wait. Thank you for saving me. My name is Gao Fei. You are so cool, can you accept me as your student?" the boy said and ran to hug his savior. Of course, our hero was pleased to hear this, but he still asked the most important thing. "Please tell me, first of all, why did these guys beat you up?" "They didn't hit me. I hit them first because they stole my girlfriend." The boy spoke in an angry and offended voice. Tears appeared in his eyes, and there was a lot of hatred and anger on his face. "They stole it? Or did she go with them herself?" the young man asked again. After thinking a little, the boy answered, "She went voluntarily." "That's it. Then it is also useless to beat them. If you want girls not to leave you, you must have the capital and strength so that they don't even think about leaving you," our hero said to the boy. The boy fell sharply to his knees, put his hands on the ground, and began to beg. "Moreover, if you accept me, I will become stronger for a start." "It's too dangerous to be with me, aren't you afraid?" the young man asked the boy. "No, I have neither father nor mother. I have nothing to lose in this life," the boy answered quickly. "Then call this number and ask him to receive you and tell him that you are my student," our hero said and handed the business card to the boy. Xia Tian turned around and began to leave. He waved his left hand at the boy and said, "Remember when you meet him that they called him Elder Shu." The boy in turn continued to look at his hero with a wide open mouth and surprise. Our hero was already walking around the corner of the house, and at that moment the boy shouted loudly after him, "Thank you very much, master. I'm very glad I met you." Xia Tian walked slowly down the street and suddenly stood near him. The red car stopped. They shouted his name from the car. Xia Tian. Behind the wheel of a red car was a luxurious, beautiful girl whom our hero already knew. "Xia Tian, how are you?" asked the charming girl. The young man began to get into this red car and spoke. "Actually, I'm fine, but you have big problems." The girl looked at the guy carefully. "These old people are so full of crap that they always want me dead." The girl answered, "Understand they even hired a killer in quicksand. What are you going to do? If they can handle it, you can give your share and stay safe. Right?" Xia Tian said. "Do you really think they'll let me go if I give up my shares?" "No, they are afraid. They are afraid of me, that I will live. They are afraid that I will be resurrected." The girl spoke in a serious voice. Our hero thought for a second, found the right words and said, "Then we will have to find a way to get rid of these people." "Actually, I don't want you to do anything illegal," the girl continued talking. "If you give me 3 days, I can destroy the power of these old men." 3 days? Our hero was surprised. "How are you going to do this? After what happened last time, I already started taking action. They must be completely destroyed financially so that they no longer have free money to create problems," the girl said. The charming girl began to shift into a higher gear, and she continued, "But if we talk about the business war, then believe me, my boy, I am an expert in this," the girl said and pressed the gas pedal hard, and the car went even faster forward. After some time, a red sports car drove up to a luxurious mansion. The house was several floors with beautiful white columns. There was lighting all around, and most importantly, large forged gates. Our hero and the girl, whose daughter's life he had recently saved, entered the house. "Please come in. Don't worry, there's no one there," said the charming girl. Xia Tian went into the house and was pleasantly surprised by the size of this house. "Do you like my house? And this will be your home in the future. Here are all the keys to this villa. Keep them for yourself," the girl said and handed a bunch of keys to our hero. "To be honest, I don't quite understand what's the point of giving them to me." "Why do I need all these keys?" the young man asked in surprise. "If the bad guys come and you want to enter the room, then it will be a problem. It will be a big problem if you don't have my keys," the girl said, and gave the keys to the house to our hero. Suddenly, a child's voice was heard in the room. The same little girl whom our hero had recently saved from death ran into the room. "My big brother!" The girl screamed loudly and joyfully and ran towards the young man. "Let's hug soon," the girl said, laughed loudly, and began to hug her savior. "Tian Tian, did you miss me, baby?" "Smiling?" the young man asked. "Yes, my hero, I missed you," she answered. The girl jumped into our hero's arms and began to laugh loudly and hug him. "Wang Ma, you have nothing else to do today, so you can go home," the girl said to her servant. "Yes, madam, okay," the servant answered. Some time ago, this charming girl came into the open door. She was wearing a very beautiful and revealing black peignoir. This lingerie only decorated her body. "Xia Tian, your room is ready, so go to bed early," said the charming hostess of the house. Xia Tian was pleasantly shocked and surprised by this beauty. All he could say was the following: "You also go to bed early." Then a little girl came into the room. She hugged the pillow tightly with her arms. "To be honest, I want to sleep with my older brother today," the little girl whispered in a quiet voice. The young man laughed a little. It was so sweet. "Tian Tian, our brother is tired. Don't bother him to rest," said the girl's mother. "Yes, big brother really wants to sleep, so you better not come," Xia Tian replied. "These are surprises and surprises." The girl's eyes became very large. Tears began to well up in the little girl's eyes. No, not this. The little girl began to be capricious and cry loudly. Today I want to sleep with my older brother. She screamed and acted up so loudly that Xia Tian, but at the end of her ears. I can't help it. You can sleep with your big brother if you want, her mother said and smiled. She did everything to prevent her daughter from being capricious. The little girl raised her head up, wiped her tears, and said, Mom, sleep with us too if you want. Mom laughed again in response. The girl sat down and began to explain that if she wants to sleep today with her savior, her older brother, then this is her right, and she strongly allows it. Our hero watched all this. As a result, the little girl persuaded her mother to also go to bed with them, and the three of them escaped together. Sleeping with your older brother. Xia Tian lay on the edge of the bed and admired these beauties, a mother and her daughter. It was very nice. A charming, beautiful girl lay next to our hero and fell asleep. The blanket covered her slightly, and it was very beautiful and sexy. As a result, the little girl and her mother had already fallen asleep, and our young man was lying on his back, with his eyes open, looking at the ceiling and thinking. I originally wanted to cultivate while sleeping, but I couldn't even fall asleep. Sometime later at night, the young man heard some noise outside the doors. He sat up on the bed and listened. At that moment, the girl, the owner of this house, woke up and through her sleep, rubbing her eyes, asked, Xia Tian, what happened? Quiet. Shut up. Don't say a word, the young man said and raised his hand to take the dagger. Sit quietly on the bed and don't move. Don't be afraid of anything. I'll go and check what's there, the young man said, holding a dagger in his hands. Xia Tian left the bedroom and started walking around the house. He listened to every rustle and noise. He understood for sure that there were strangers in the house. A young man walked near the door that led to the room of the mistress of the house. The sound comes from here, from Zheng Ru's room. If she hadn't brought her daughter to sleep with me today. He slowly put his hand on the doorknob and began to open it little by little, so quietly that it was inaudible and unnoticeable. Then Xia Tian sharply and quickly opened the door to this room completely. With one hand he held the door, and in the other hand he held a sharp dagger tightly. Stop hiding and come out here. I already know where you are, said loudly. Our hero did not press his hand on his seal to turn on the light. Xia Tian turned on the light in the living room and it becomes completely bright. He took a few steps forward and began to look around. So far he hasn't noticed anyone. The young man looked around carefully. Think you're good at hiding? You're hiding behind a curtain with a gun in your left hand and wearing brown socks. Our hero revealed the whole truth. Her jaw dropped for a second. A bald man in a jacket and trousers came out from behind the curtain with a pistol in his hands and wearing brown socks. I only blame myself for not hiding well and being discovered by you. But today you are the one who is unlucky, said the bald man. Xia Tian once again looked at this man and realized that he had a truly unique gift in X-ray vision. With my eyesight, there is no use hiding anywhere, the young man reasoned. Suddenly we see a man, but he left his gun right at our hero. Do you want to tell me your name before you die? Aiming straight at the young man's head, the bald man asked. Of course I want to say. The boy answered in a calm voice and held his sharp dagger tightly in front of him with your hands. My name is Xia Tian. Are you Xia Tian, Long's son? The big man asked, surprised and in fear and horror. Did you really know my father? The young man quickly asked. The egg changed. Notes of hope appeared on it. I read your profile in quicksand. An obedient and good student, uneven to your father. When your father was 20 years old, his reputation had already spread throughout China. The man began to talk, and our young man had never heard this information about his father from anyone. Moreover, from a stranger who stood in front of him with a pistol in his hands and a few seconds ago wanted to kill him. What else do you know about my father? Tell the truth. Maria, if you tell me everything, I will try not to kill you, the young man said in a quiet, calm voice. The bald man laughed loudly throughout the room. Do you really want to kill me? If you give the firmament of heaven to your father, then I will think about it, he said. The man continued to laugh. No problem. Non-local scroll here continue. the young man said, holding a certain package in his left hand. Are you serious now? The bald man asked with a change in his face. The bald man looked carefully at our hero. He frowned and looked piercingly at the boy. Then I will tell you that there are 4 great masters in China. This is Dongwen, Shi Yin, Nansha, and Beijing. Your father Xianglong was Shi Yin. The bald man continued talking. This information simply amazed our hero. Xia Strong squeezed a scroll of some kind of materials in his hand and asked loudly, Then why did he die? Our hero continued to stand opposite the bald man in his hands, who had a gun. He was holding in his hands something that resembled a scroll. Unfortunately, I don't know this. Pass me the heavenly scroll, which you hold in your hands. I fulfilled my agreement and said what you want, the man said. Xia understood that he was bluffing in front of this man, but it was necessary to go to the end. The young man thought a little, looked carefully at the man and made his choice. With a sharp movement of his hand, he threw the ingot that was in his hand directly at the bald man. The bandit deftly caught it with his hand. Well, since you gave me this treasure, I will be generous and let you go today. Live long, boy, the man said joyfully. Okay, but you didn't stop coming today, did you? The young man asked the bald man. My mission today is to finish off Beauty Zheng Ru. I can let you go, but unfortunately, not her. The bald man smiled and reloaded his pistol. I got you, okay. Then I'll give you a chance. If you can convince me not to kill you in 3 sentences, then I will let you go, the young man said, scratching the back of his head and smiling straight into his opponent's face. Kill me? Only you? What are you talking about? Don't make me laugh, boy. Go to bed and don't bother your uncle to do his job. The bald man with the gun said, smiling. 1 sentence was not what I want to hear. The young man got angry and said to the man. Our hero realized that he needed to attack him and prepared for battle. Just a few seconds later, Xia launched several signature, fast, and powerful moves. He hit the hand in which the man was holding his pistol, and the pistol flew to the side. A few more seconds passed, and now our hero was holding his enemy by the neck with his right hand. He was ready to rip out his Adam's apple. What are you doing, boy? Who is this? The man asked in a hoarse voice, breathless. Keep talking, the boy said. This villain's face began to turn blue. He was choking and almost lost consciousness. With the last of his strength, the man began to whisper in a quiet voice. I can tell you more about your father if you want. This sentence is also incorrect. The match answered loudly and began to squeeze his offender's throat even more tightly. I'll tell you something else. This is very important information. There are 8 scrolls in total. The man began to answer in a hoarse voice. This is not one of the 3 sentences I wanted to hear from you. I understand that you don't have them, the boy said. And he continued to strangle this bandit. While our hero was strangling this man who wanted to kill the girl he liked so much, he thought, killing this scoundrel here is not a good idea. I'll leave it to the police. Xia squeezed this scoundrel's throat even tighter and lifted him slightly. The young man's anger simply overwhelmed him completely. But he understood that he could not kill this scoundrel in the house. When he pushed this bald man aside with all his strength, the bandit flew several meters to the side and hit his head against the wall. You are a very stupid man. All you had to do was say that you would let my beauty Zheng Ru go, and I would forgive you, the guy said. Suddenly, the beauty Zheng Ru herself walked into the room. Anna, as always, looked gorgeous in her black lingerie. Xia, are you okay? The girl asked in a frightened and anxious voice. At that second, our hero realized that this girl probably saw everything he did to these people. He was afraid of what she would think of him now. Yes, I'm fine. If I can't beat one guy, then how can I protect you and your beautiful little daughter? Our hero said, embarrassed. After these words, the girl rushed into the arms of our young man. She hugged him tightly with both arms and pressed her face to his chest. Lord, you scared me to death, the girl said in a sensitive voice. His hand on the girl's head began to stroke and calm her. Don't be afraid. Get dressed, we will have friends at home. The girl began to wipe tears from her face and speak. Yes, I know. The key forecast is now preparing tea for the guests. Leaving for the kitchen, the beauty asked, Xiatian, tell me, will you always protect me now? The girl asked and looked at the young man with some special look. Yes, I will. I won't let anything happen to you or your beautiful little daughter. Our hero answered the girl in a calm voice. Tears were still welling up in the eyes of the beautiful girl, the mistress of this house. This is very good. Relieved, the girl said. The beautifully charming lady of the house went into the kitchen to put on the kettle and pour out fresh tea for the guests. She slammed the door behind her, and the young man thought it was time to act. Xiatian quickly took out his phone from his pants pocket and began to play a number. Now it's time to call someone to come and clean this place, he said out loud. Some time after the mistress of the house got dressed, our heroes went out onto the porch of this house to greet the guests. In the darkness, it was still impossible to make out who had come to her. When the guests took a few steps forward and the light began to fall on their faces, our hero saw a boy who raised his hand and screamed loudly, Master, we are here! Next to him stood the master and teacher. The man and the boy began to enter the house. Brother Shu, little Fei, you have come a long way, said the young man on the threshold of this house. Please come into the house and sit down. The girl said friendly. Xiatian, the boy you recommended to me is indeed a very good candidate for martial arts master, the master said. I think very highly of you, so try your best. Xiatian replied, smiling. Friends, this is a murderer from the Peskov Fence organization. Therefore, I will ask you to take him to the police station and leave a note for them, our hero said. On the floor of this room lay a man who wanted to kill everyone. Don't worry, I'll take care of it, the master answered. And at that moment the boy was already tying the bandit's hands with a rope. Xiatian, in a while, there will be a competition at Liulan Villa. It depends on whether I can take an advantage, so... An elderly man with a beard said, and was immediately interrupted by our hero. Leave it to me, the young man said. The guests began to leave this house. It was deep night outside. Xiatian stood on the porch of this house and said in a calm voice, See you later, friends. Our hero picked up that paper scroll that he passed off as the truth. He held both in his hand and decided to see what was there. If he told me there were 8. I wonder what will happen if you take them all together and put them together. The young man began to ask himself this question. In the room where our hero was, the door opened. The mistress of the house appeared there. She saw a young man and called for her. Tell me, how is your little daughter? She was scared. Smiling, the guy said to the hostess of the house, No, not at all. My daughter has been sleeping soundly for a long time and hasn't even woken up. The girl said and looked at this young man with a languid gaze. Xiatian walked closer to the girl. You know, I'm very glad that you are here today. The mistress of the house began to speak, and her eyes shone with joy. Today, here with you, I feel completely safe. The girl spoke and looked straight into the eyes of our hero. The girl came closer to the young man, hugged him, and put her head on his chest. It was so hard for me to be alone all these years, and only now do I feel like I have a home and someone I can rely on. The girl spoke in a quiet, calm voice. Thank you very much, the young man replied and hugged the girl. There was a silent pause for several seconds. The young man and the girl began to passionately look into each other's eyes and bring their lips closer to each other. Xiatian. The girl whispered in a quiet voice, and at that second, the sweetest and most passionate kiss happened. A kiss that our hero could only dream of. He kissed this beautiful girl and looked at her constantly every second. She closed her eyes and simply enjoyed this moment. They began to hug each other very scary and very tightly. It was as if they had not seen each other for 1,000 years. These were real feelings. It was real passion. Myron, with a movement of his hands, our hero took off the dress from this charming girl. It fell lightly and carelessly to the floor near her feet, and they continued kissing. The passion was just off the charts. It was the best night in our hero's life. The morning and the next day came. The action takes place near the business center where our hero's aunt worked. Our hero and his beloved girl appeared near this building. Today she looked even more impressive in a beautiful red sexy suit. People who were standing aside began to discuss them. Look, Miss Zung is here. Who is this guy? Judging by his clothes, he must be her personal guard. People spoke. The guy and the girl went up into the building and walked along long corridors. Our hero walked behind and reasoned. After tonight, I have already broken through to the next level of heavenly awakening. I didn't expect that I would have such an effect. A beautiful girl in a red suit opened the doors to the meeting room. Xia Tian stood behind her. The girl carefully assessed the situation and looked at everyone who was in this room. Men were sitting at a large, long conference table. There were 7 of them, and all of them were in formal suits. Our heroes began to enter the meeting room. One of the men began to talk and ask, "Mrs. Zung, who is this young man behind you? It is unacceptable to bring a white-faced boy with you to a company shareholder meeting." The lady in the red suit was indignant and answered confidently, "If he's a boy with a snow-white face, you won't even be able to reach his toes." The man was indignant. He slammed his palm on the table and said loudly, "Yes, how dare you? I won't let you talk to me. We are holding an internal company meeting here. Please tell me who will be responsible if something happens when an outsider enters?" The man asked, very indignant and in a loud voice. "He's my man. This is the main thing. Who do you think will be held responsible if something goes wrong?" The girl asked in a calm, monotonous voice. All the men immediately closed their mouths. The girl leaned over the table and began to look each of the men in the eyes. "You are so shameless that you can say all these things so easily." Someone from the table began to be indignant. "You are really very shameless. You simply have no conscience." Another man spoke up. "Who is the shameless one here?" the woman asked indignantly in a loud voice. "The car accident, kidnapping, and attempted murder were all set up by you. Isn't that right?" The girl asked her question even louder. "Don't talk nonsense." The men were indignant. "Do you have proof?" Did they continue to ask questions? "How dare you deny your actions? Are you even men or what?" The girl asked harshly and rudely. She carefully examined everyone who was sitting at this negotiating table. "Then look at this," the girl said confidently and threw a few on the table. "I have papers and documents." These papers, documents, and evidence were scattered all over the negotiating table. For a second there was silence in the hall. "See for yourself, boys. Remember, you are not men, but just a pitiful semblance of them," the girl said loudly and pointed her finger at everyone. The men nervously began to sort through documents and papers. Each of them looked at what was written, but no one wanted his name to be indicated in these documents. Each of the men took the documents in their hands and carefully began to read every word. Fright and fear was visible on their faces. "This is exactly the evidence you wanted," the girl in the red suit said in a menacing voice. "I have everything for you." The men began to discuss something among themselves. They spoke very quietly and indistinctly so that she would not hear. "This is a lie. This is all falsification," he shouted one of the men. "Why are you slandering us?" another man shouted. There was panic and fear in the eyes of these shareholders. "Do we want to remove you from your position? You went to close for the role of CEO of the Seng Group company," one man said loudly. "Eventually, their ultimate goal was revealed to remove me. Then I'll ask other shareholders what they think." Looking at these shareholders, the girl thought, "It seems to me that now you should sell us your shares at a low price." Looking at the documents, one of the shareholders responded sharply, "I'll use the evidence to put them in jail." And then he divided their shares with steel-talented specialists. The girl in the red suit threatened. The men closed their mouths for a while and became silent. They began to quietly glance at each other, but they were silent. "Gentlemen, we need to do something. We definitely need to come to one decision. This decision should be generally beneficial for everyone. Madam, the General Director is very smart. It is already clear to everyone that this solution is more beneficial for everyone." Our hero thought at that moment. "I understand. This is all the work of this boy," the man shouted loudly and stood up from his seat. He was indignant and pointed his finger at the young man. This white-faced boy is trying to slander us to spite the Zheng family. The man continued to scream loudly. It's none of his business, the girl replied. Xiatian couldn't stand how to talk to his beloved girl and began to approach the man who allowed himself too much. The young man approached the angry man and began to talk to him. Is it true that if we get rid of these 5 old people, there will be no more problems? My name is Eyes, the boy asked the man. Xiatian, calm down, won't be impulsive. 2 more days until these old people are finished forever. The girl began to reassure her boyfriend. 2 days? You can wait, but the quicksand killers won't wait, the guy said. What are you going to do now? The man asked in an alarming voice. And without thinking for a long time, our hero struck this scoundrel in the face, who was insulting his beloved girl. The man grabbed his face. Tears appeared in his eyes. Did you hit me? What do you allow yourself? The man said. Do you want me to hit you again? I have never heard such a strange request, the young man said, and once again hit this scoundrel in the face with his hand. At that second, there was a knock on the door, and the door began to open. The door opened, and a man in a suit and tie appeared in the room. He turned to Miss Zheng. Manager Wang asked me to bring you materials, madam, said the man in the suit. And then I watched the picture of a young man beating one of the shareholders. Materials? Please bring them to me, Miss said in a calm voice. Our hero continued to hold the offender by the clothes, and the man in the suit carried a folder with documents for Miss. Xiatian continued to firmly hold this scoundrel's shirt with his hand. I completely let him go, because I wanted to punch him in the face one more time. Suddenly our hero froze. He focused his vision on the man who walked past him. Xiatian listened to every step and the click of heels on the parquet floor. He didn't like it and began to suspect something. When a man in a suit with documents is near our hero, Xiatian froze and began to slowly turn in his direction. Stop, said the boy. Do all your employees wear leather combat boots to work? Our hero asked a man passing by in surprise. After this question, the man in a suit and with documents in his hands stopped. There was a slight pause in the room, and a second later this man in a suit threw a folder with documents to the side, papers scattered all over the room. The man in the suit took a knife out of his pocket and held it tightly in his hand. It was clear that this was all for a reason, that he has his own plan. A man in a suit and with a knife in his hands quickly ran to attack the girl in a red suit. His goal was to kill her. Another moment and disaster will happen. A lonely, defenseless girl stood at the end of the room and a fanatic with a knife ran towards her. Damn it. I should have predicted this earlier. This is a difficult messenger with documents. These guys don't wear military boots. The boy thought quickly at that second. The man got as close as possible to the CEO. At arm's length, he quickly waved his sharp knife in front of the girl's face. Xiatian ran up to the bandit and with a deft movement of his hand, hit him hard on the hand, which contained the knife. Thank God, the knife immediately fell out of the bandit's hands. The guy hit the bandit's hand and body several more times to neutralize him completely. The man who had been stabbed by the CEO looked carefully at the young man. It was clear that he was planning something else. A second later, the man took a few leaps back and squatted down on one knee. He was ready to attack again. You are a very fast boy. The man began to speak. I didn't expect such a reaction from you. Commendable. Well, let's check whether you're faster than a bullet or not, the bandit said and pointed his gun at our hero named Xiatian. Did you just say bullets? I guess that's what you mean? I smile, thank you. The young man opened his palm, on which lay all the bullets from his pistol. What did you say? What the hell is going on here? What kind of tricks are these? The bandit became even more indignant and aimed his pistol at the young man. After these words, our hero simply unclenched his fist and poured all the bullets onto the floor. Immortal steps of wandering clouds. Our hero said and quickly ran to meet the bandit. Sharp fingers, index finger. Our hero said the phrase again, and now he is already in the jump to deal crushing blows to this assassin. Xiatian jumped hard with 2 fingers directly at the killer's throat. He practically drove his Adam's apple down his throat. After this, the young man, with a sharp movement of his hand, removed his fingers from the killer's neck. After this, the man fell dead to the floor. The remaining reactionary men rose from their chairs and surrounded our young man. Xia Tian stood calmly in the center of the hall and kept his hands in his pockets. He carefully examined the face of every man who was in this meeting room. Who hired this killer? Do I need to say it? The young man was thinking at that second. I give you one last chance to save your life. Give up your shares and then give up, our hero said in a menacing voice. The male shareholders in this room were very scared. Their mouths opened in surprise and fear. Suddenly, a policeman entered the open door of the meeting room. Who called the police here? He asked the people. It was me who called the police. That man had a gun. One shareholder shouted in a loud, frightened voice, and he pointed his finger to the side. Everyone in this room was confused. No one knew how to react or behave in front of the police. Answer me one question. Who is ultimately responsible for everything that happens here? The policeman asked the man. The man lowered his eyes to the floor and did not even look at the policeman. In fact, he had nothing to answer. Me. The general director answered loudly and clearly. The girl in the red suit stood absolutely calm and without nerves and looked at the policeman. You will come with me. I will need to take all your statements. The policeman said to the girl in the red suit and invited her to go with him to the station. The girl listened carefully to the policeman and practically agreed with everything he told her. Very interesting. What about this killer? Do you really care? The young man asked the policeman in surprise and with a smile. Did I call my colleagues? Reinforcements will arrive soon. Stay here and await further investigation, the policeman said. A very strange and interesting procedure, the young man thought, looking at this policeman. The policeman began to leave, followed by a girl in a red suit, and asked, Mr. Policeman, this is the back entrance to the office. Yes, my car is parked there. Follow me. The policeman answered. The girl in the red suit followed the policeman, but some suspicions and inconsistencies had already crept into her head. At this time, our hero was tightly tying all the men who were in this room with ropes. Each of them was under suspicion. The doors to the meeting room opened again, and 3 police officers entered. In front of everyone was a police girl who shouted loudly, Nobody believes it. The police girl glanced at our hero named Xia Tian, and I recognized him immediately. She had very surprised eyes and an open mouth. You again? The girl asked the policeman. Of course, who else am I? Is it you again? Our hero answered loudly with a smile. So you are the very reinforcement your colleague was talking about. What a coincidence, the young man said. What do you mean me again? I'm a police officer. Of course she must come. The girl in uniform began to make excuses. Wait, did you say reinforcements? What other reinforcements? We are the first to come here to the crime scene, the police girl said. Who was that guy in uniform then? Who was that policeman? Our hero asked the girl in fear and excitement. At this time, the policeman had already opened the door of the police car and invited the general director to climb into it. Didn't understand. Isn't this a car for criminals? I'm going to cooperate with the investigation. I can't drive a car like this for criminals, said the girl in the red suit. I said quickly, Get into the car. The policeman ordered the girl in a rude and loud voice. Who the hell are you? They began to become indignant and respond loudly. Girl in a red suit. She understood that this was definitely not a policeman, so that policeman wasn't real. Our hero screamed and quickly ran into the street. What? I don't understand what you're saying? The girl asked the policeman loudly and ran after the guy. Running out into the street, the young man saw a policeman trying to force his girlfriend into his van. At that second, our hero immediately screamed, No! Miss Zheng! Be careful, it's an ambush, it's a trap. The young man screamed loudly and ran with all his might to help the girl. At that moment, one of the men in black took out a rifle, took aim, and fired a shot. Xiatian, jumping, managed to push the girl away and shield her from the bullet with his body. And the shot hit this policeman right in the hand. Be careful, there is a sniper there. All coverage. The police girl began to give orders. Xiatian tightly and tenderly hugged his girlfriend in a red suit, pressed her as tightly as possible to him, and began to calm her down. Following the trajectory, he disappeared. This means that this sniper also left. What other trajectory? The police girl began to ask our hero in surprise. Xiatian remained silent and continued to reassure his girlfriend. In the lower eye, it's on the head, and he asked me to calm down. The activities of the shifting sands have not stopped, and now they have sent 2 assassins. The danger for Zheng-ru was not over yet. The young man thought at that moment. The police girl stood aside and watched as the young man she liked gently hugged another beauty. The next day in the village, the children went to the school basketball court. Because there was another basketball game ahead of them, this time our hero took everything into his own hands. He was the leader of his team in blue. His team constantly attacked the opponent's ring. Each time, Xiaotian was doing a beautiful job, making dribbling feints and abruptly escaping his opponents. No one from the opposing team could stop him. This time he did not expect help from anyone, but did everything himself. Did you do everything for your team to win? He scored balls into someone else's basket every time he approached it. Of course it was a success. The girls stood near the sports ground and cheered for their own. Everyone was worried in their own way and supported our hero. Only the cousin stood and was jealous. I'll have to keep an eye on this beautiful girl named Zheng-ru until I deal with the killers. Looking at his girlfriend, our hero thought, but suddenly a young man in the fan stands noticed a silhouette. He began to look intently in this direction. This guy in a black can with a hood haunted our hero. Something is clearly not right here. Looking at him, our hero thought,